Jeb Philip's sister-in-law Barbara gave everyone in the family one of those kits to trace their ancestors. Her own family had all spit in a test tube and were excited with the results. Turns out they were 100% Swedish-Norwegian, not a lick of any other blood. Barbara knew her husband's family were mutts and thought it would be interesting to learn how mixed up they were. She had no idea. Mixed up can have so many different meanings. You never know how these things are going to end. But Barbara is one of those women who can light up a room just by walking into it. So the entire Phillips family did the spit in the test tube and were going to reveal the results right after Easter dinner. Ma Phillips, Haley, did it upright. The dinner table overflowed with an assortment of vegetables and other side dishes to accompany the great roast of lamb in Spanish rice, all family favorites. Jeb's siblings, older brother Hal, short for Harold, and younger sister Marty were there with their spouses. Jeb had invited his current squeeze, but she bowed out to spend the day at her grandparents'. The relationship was in its infancy, so they were lucky not to be required to eat twice on Easter. Jeb's dad, Harold, Sr., did the honors by slicing the lamb and passing out a slice to the outstretched plates of each person around the family table. Even Marty took a slice, obviously over her 2-year experiment with vegetarianism. With their plates filled, Hal said Grace and Harold gave a toast to the love and the kindness this family has shown each other. If anyone noticed the tears falling from Haley's eyes, no one made mention of it. Haley had a habit of crying when she was happy when she watched old movies, or on those rare occasions when she was sad. The family was inured to Haley's tears. When everyone finished eating, Hal and Jeb cleared the table. This was a custom in the Phillips house. Ma cooked with Marty's help, and the boys cleared the table and filled the dishwasher. Jeb and Hal came back to the table to find everyone sitting with their unopened envelopes in front of their seats. The plan was to read the results and then dig into the banana cream pie for dessert. As the envelopes were being opened, Haley got up from the table and excused herself. Everyone assumed she was going to use the bathroom and continued to read the results from the testing service. Harold read his first, 95% British-Irish, 5% Dutch. As soon as Hal opened his envelope, Barbara grabbed it from his hands, too excited to wait. "I knew it. I knew you had an interesting mix. 46% British or Irish, 28% French or German, and 26% Iberian. That's Spanish and Portuguese, right?" Barbara handed the printout back to her husband and leaned to her left to look at Marty's printout, almost exactly the same. Except Marty has more French-German and less Iberian. What's your say, Jeb? Jeb was staring at the printout. The look on his face showed the confusion raging in his mind. He looked up from the page to focus on Barbara's smiling face, then to his brother and sister, sitting on each side of Barbara. He finally swiveled to the head of the table. His father was staring back at him. He couldn't read his father's eyes. The silence was interrupted by Hal. "Did I just hear the garage door open? And where's Mom?" Hal got up from the table and looked out the front window. "Dad, Mom's pulling out of the drive. What the heck is going on?" Marty pulled out her phone and dialed her mother's cell. Everyone was now staring at Marty as she waited for Haley to answer her phone. The room was quiet enough to hear Haley's voice when she picked up. "I'm sorry, baby. Tell everyone that I'm sorry." "Dad, what's going on?" Harold looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. "Jeb, why don't you read what the service sent you?" Jeb hesitated. Did his father really want this made public? "Go ahead, son." "It says I'm 50% Italian, 22% Iberian, and 28% French-German." Suddenly, Jeb remembered all the ribbing Ted Rizzo and he got in school because they looked similar. He looked at his father. "Dad, did you know?" The rest of the family sat in stunned silence, watching and waiting for Harold's answer. I started to suspect it when I saw you and Ted Rizzo standing close together on your junior high baseball team. It happened about the same time that Ted's mother and father split up. No one knew why they split, but it didn't take a genius to make an assumption that Ted's mother saw the same thing. I did. Harold addressed the others. I hate to be rude, but I think Jeb and I need to discuss this alone, outside on the porch. Hal, Marty, I think you should give your mother a little time before you call her, and when you do, please be kind. This is no time to drill her for answers. I have my own. Questions that I believe should be answered first. Please respect your mother's and my privacy. Jeb, grab your drink and let's head outside. Jeb and Harold walked out to the porch and sat down. Jeb didn't wait to ask his first question. So, is Mr. Rizzo my father? Well, I'm your father. Please don't insult the 22 years I spent raising you by denying me that title. Sorry, Dad. That came out wrong. Me too. What I meant to say is just because I didn't contribute to your DNA doesn't mean you're not my son, or that I don't love you just as much as I always have. But to answer your question, maybe Rizzo is your biological father. I don't know. We'll have to ask your mother when she's ready. Where do you think she went? Harold actually laughed. Where else? I suspect she's sitting on your Aunt April's sofa right now, bawling her eyes out in her sister's arms. Dad, you said you started to suspect over 12 years ago. Why didn't you ever confront Mom and ask her about it? A bunch of reasons. For one, I didn't want anything to come between you and me. By the time I began to suspect it, I was hopelessly in love with you as my son. I've always been proud of you and proud to be your father. I didn't want anything to change. Harold took a drink from his whiskey glass and continued, I hope you don't think any less of me as a man. But the second reason is, I love your mother so damn much that I didn't want that to change either. As far as I could tell, your mother was in love with me. She showed me that love every day we were married. When I reflect on it, her love only intensified after you were born. If she had a fling with Ted's father, she tried to make it up to me for the past 20+ years. I was happy to let her. But if you liked the status quo, why did you go along with Barbara's suggestion for the DNA tests? Hell, Jeb, you know your brother's wife. Do you think she'd ever let it go? That girl is so damn innocent. She never dreamt our family could have a skeleton in our closet. Your brother's a lucky son of Beck. Both father and son laughed as Harold refilled Jeb's glass with 2 fingers of wild turkey. Besides, it was time to bring it to a head. Your mother and I have had a secret between us all these years, and I wanted to know the who, what, and why. I probably could have done it in a better setting, but I guess I got a case of the stupid. That, and I thought your mother would approach me with some answers before it got this far. I really didn't expect her to take off like that. Now, the two of them sat and let the quiet of Haley's backyard fill their senses, neither saying a word. Haley's spring flowers, the white lilies, blue irises, and multicolored pansies graced the brick patio. It was truly a peaceful, beautiful space. 10 minutes went by in silence before Hal stuck his head out the back door. Dad, Jeb, we're all going to take off unless you need us here. Marty tried calling Mom again, but it went to voicemail. You know Marty and Barbara. Neither of those two could let it go. Marty was standing right behind Hal when he said this, and made her displeasure known by punching her oldest brother in the arm. Marty hugged her dad, and then her brother Jeb, practically squeezing his breath away. There were tears in her eyes. Marty's husband shook everyone's hand and led Marty away. Barbara was next, repeating the sequence, hugging Harold and squeezing Jeb while kissing his cheek before Hal led her out the side gate. Harold watched them leave and pointed Jeb to the patio chair. Let's finish our drinks. I'd like you to do me a favor. Could you ask Ted if he knows how to get in touch with his father? Jeb looked over at his father. Why? You're not going to do something stupid, are you? No, not that it hasn't crossed my mind once or twice. Or Sometimes I fantasize about hurting him, but right now, I just need to talk with him before I talk to your mother. That's the trouble with infidelity, Jeb. It robs you of the trust you have in your spouse's words and actions. Remember that, if and when you get married, you'll have plenty of opportunities to stray, and you may think you can pull it off without hurting your marriage, but it always takes at least a little chip out of the relationship, no matter how inconsequential the betrayal may seem at the time. Okay, Dad, as long as you promise. I'll give Ted a call tomorrow. Last I heard, Mr. Rizzo was selling cars up north in Dallas. What are you going to tell Ted? Let's wait till our family situation gets squared away. Then Ted and I will talk about our relationship. I expect Ted's always wondered himself, if he doesn't already know. Thanks. I'd like to surprise Tony Rizzo if I can. Now that the lid was blown off the kettle, no one wanted to waste any time. Jeb called Ted Monday morning, and after the usual catch-up, found out where Ted's father worked without revealing the why. Just two friends shooting the shit. How's your mom? How's your dad? What are they up to? Tuesday at 3 p.m. Harold Phillips was knocking on Tony Rizzo's sales office door jamb at the Lexus dealership where Tony worked. As Tony looked up from the papers on his desk, the old feelings were welling up inside Harold, the desire to punch this asshole right in the nose. Harold? It had been over a dozen years, and Tony couldn't think of a reason his old neighbor was standing in his doorway. Harold took a moment to collect himself. Hi, Tony. I was wondering if you had a moment to talk. It's private, so maybe we could go somewhere a little less public. Tony's thoughts were starting to catch up. Sure, let's grab a car and go for a ride. Tony grabbed a set of keys to a car and held the door open for Harold. They drove to a nearby park and got out without saying a word. Both men sat on the bench facing a small pond. I want to know about you and Haley. Tony was still catching up. Harold's words weren't what he expected. His face showed the surprise. What do you mean, me and Haley? There never was anything between me and your wife. Tony's attempt at deflection pissed Harold off. What the fuck do you mean? Nothing. Don't fuck with me, Tony. It doesn't take a genius to see Jeb and Ted are brothers and Jeb's D. And nah. Just came back. He's half Italian, Rizzo's. Although the situation was hilarious to Tony, he was smart enough to realize it wouldn't be funny to Harold. After all, Tony had a dozen years to get used to the idea. Harold was only now going to learn the truth. Tony stifled the laugh. Jesus, Harold. Haven't you and Haley talked? It wasn't me that you were looking for. At first, I thought it was you banging my ex, Sophia. When I saw Jeb and Ted playing in the ballpark together, I figured they both had to be your sons, because I never touched your wife. In fact, I was ready to go. Down and kick your ass. Luckily, I picked a fight with Sophia first. Told her I was going to make you pay. That's when Sophia told me the truth. Paul Mazzetti is Ted's father. Mazzetti is Ted's father. Mazzetti, that son of a bitch that lived on the corner before he moved west. Dad was stunned. You mean Mazzetti was banging Sophia and Haley? Sophia didn't say if she knew anything about Haley, although she suspected, I guess. What Sophia did say was Mazzetti was most likely Ted's father because they were having an affair when she got pregnant. Why didn't you tell me? Because you and Haley seemed to be happy. I thought you two had a good marriage. Hell, I thought if I figured out about Ted and Jeb, you probably had. And who was I to make waves if you didn't? Harold had to think about this, but it did make sense. Harold, I'm sorry if you think I should have said something. After I found out I knew that Sophia and I were getting a divorce, I couldn't live with her betrayal, but I didn't want to be the cause of your divorce. Plus, let me confess to a more selfish reason. If you were nearby, you could keep a close eye on Ted, and you did that. Half the reason he turned out to be a fine young man is your influence on him. I know that, and I'll always be grateful for that. It's true. After the Rizzo's divorce, and until Sophia moved away 3 years ago, the boys became closer, and Harold was almost a second father to Ted. Tony watched Harold for a minute, watching him try to absorb this information. Kind of makes your head spin, doesn't it? Spin. I'm ready to puke. I'm so dizzy. I can't tell you how many times I thought of beating the shit out of you, and here you are, just as much a victim as me. I'm glad you're not one of those hotheads, coming into my office with guns blazing. Well, now I have to find Mazzetti and have a talk with him. Tony answered, Mazzetti's dead. Dead? How? Boating accident. He had too many drinks, went out on his boat on Lake Mead, and fell overboard. The smile on Tony's face, as he related Mazzetti's fate, sent a chill down Harold's back. The smile was there for only a split second before being replaced by a look of deep concern. Shame, really. We both probably could have sued the bastard for child support or something. But in the long run, it's probably better this way. I don't think either boy would want to connect with an asshole that goes around seducing married women. With that, both men got off the park bench and walked to the car. As they drove back to the dealership, Tony asked what brought this up after so many years. Harold explained how the DNA tests precipitated it all, including Haley's flight to her sister's. It's none of my business. But what are you going to do now with Haley? I guess with Mazzetti gone, I'll have to get my answers from Haley. I was hoping to hear both sides of the story, but all in all, I'm not saddened to hear the asshole drowned. Does Ted know? No, Ted still believes I'm his sperm donor. I try to keep in touch with him and show him I care, despite the divorce from his mom. Some days are better than others. One of us calls the other at least every other week. Harold nodded. Jeb, knowing he's half Italian, will probably complicate things. He thinks he's Ted's half-brother and that you're his biological father. When I tell him the truth, he's bound to want more answers, and it will eventually get back to Ted. You and Sophia might want to get ready. Tony was suddenly overwhelmed with sadness. He loved Ted and didn't want that to change. Can you ask Jeb to hold off a week? Give me a chance to talk to Ted. You know I will. And I know Jeb will agree. Good luck, Tony, and thanks. By the time Harold climbed into his car and started the drive home, he was physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausted. There was a sign for a chain hotel before one of the exits as he headed south. Harold decided to pull over and get a room. Whether for a few hours or the night, he'd decide later. With the key to a room in hand, Harold changed his mind about a nap. The gentleman's club across the street seemed to be calling his name. He hadn't been in a strip club since his bachelor party almost 30 years ago. In fact, Harold had only seen one naked woman besides his wife in all those years. Time to fix that. The following morning, Harold woke up with a splitting headache. He looked at the clock. Damn, it was 9:30. His mouth tasted awful. No wonder. The last time he brushed his teeth was yesterday morning. Harold put on his pants and a t-shirt and walked to the office. He grabbed a tin of aspirin, a toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, and a cup of coffee before heading back to his room. The shower helped, and within an hour, he was feeling more human. He dialed Haley's number and was pleased when she picked up. We need to talk. I'm at work right now. When do you want to meet? I can be at the house in an hour. Can you take the rest of the day off? Why, where are you? Harold's headache was coming back, and it was making him miserable. Never mind where I'm at. Just tell me if you can be at the house soon. Harold could hear Haley start to cry. I'll be there. I love. Harold had hung up. As Harold drove north on the freeway, he wondered why, after all these years, he's so angry. He'd known for years that Jeb wasn't his biological son. He always suspected Rizzo was the father. Was part of his anger the new knowledge that Haley was fucking that greaseball Mazzetti, and it was Mazzetti who sired Jeb. Damn, he always hated that asshole. Harold realized that no matter how far down you push the feelings of being cuckolded, those feelings are always there. I should have fucked that Asian stripper last night. He said it out loud in the car. But he knew better. He had grown up and was no longer the kind of man to break a promise. After breaking his vows all those years ago, he made a promise to himself never to make the same mistake again. Haley was already at the house when Harold pulled into the drive. He walked into the house to the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Haley was sitting at the same dining room table, at the same seat where Harold last saw her 3 days ago. So much has happened since Easter, he thought to himself as he watched Haley open a box of pastries from his favorite bakery. Bribery? Harold said it with a smile on his voice. He loved this woman. Who said these are for you? Haley replied as she took a bite out of the cream cheese sweet roll. Haley's humor was one of the traits Harold loved about her, and she knew it. He appreciated her attempt to lighten the moment. But it was time to get serious. Tell me about Paul Mazzetti. Haley actually flinched when Harold said the name. She suddenly looked small and scared. Could this be the end of her marriage? How did Harold find out it was Paul? All these thoughts swirled in her head. With nothing else to help her clear her mind, Haley stood up and poured the coffee into the 2 cups sitting in front of her. She passed 1 coffee cup and the box of pastries to Harold. Harold sat there, waiting without taking a sip of coffee or a bite of the cinnamon roll. Haley finally started to speak. It happened twice. I'm sorry. I'd give anything to undo it. Then I ended up pregnant with Jeb. I swear, I thought Jeb was yours. Everyone said how much he looked like me and my brothers. It wasn't until he started to grow up that I saw Jeb and Ted together when they were in the same 5th grade class. I can still remember that horrid moment. It was during a field trip when both Sophia and I were chaperones. I looked at Sophia when the 2 boys were waiting together to get on the bus. I could see it in Sophia's eyes without her even saying a word. We both knew. We never spoke about it. Even after Tony left Sophia and filed for divorce. Even when Sophia put the house up for sale and left town. Harold was getting tired of the rambling. He wanted answers. Tell me how it started. Haley looked Harold right in his eyes. When I tell you, I want you to understand something. I'm not excusing my behavior or blaming anyone but myself. I also want you to know that Jeb has been your son in everything but in DNA since he started to grow in my belly. He's our son, yours and mine. I told Jeb the same thing Sunday evening. I'm glad he loves and needs you. It started with Paul 6 months after Hal was born. I was still fighting the extra pounds from the pregnancy and feeling fat and ugly. Harold interrupted Haley. Don't give me that. I was feeling fat and ugly bullshit. When did I ever say you were anything but beautiful? Given Harold's outburst, Haley's reply was calm, much calmer than she felt. You didn't have to say it. All you had to do was screw that bitch from work for the year you 2 were carrying on your affair, before and after Hal was born. If Haley had pulled out a shotgun and blasted Harold in the chest, the effect of her words couldn't have been more severe. He sat with his mouth open and just stared without saying a word. What? You didn't think I knew? Did you think you were so sneaky that I couldn't smell the sex and her perfume on you when you rolled in, late from working, all evening on important projects? Harold still hadn't said a word, so Haley continued. I didn't set out to cheat or to get even. All I wanted was for you to figure out you still loved me and wanted me for your wife instead of that whore. What kind of bitch tries to steal a man away from his wife who just gave birth to his infant son? Paul took advantage of the situation. He was walking past the house one evening. I had just come home and Hal was in the back seat. I had the groceries in the back of the car, and Hal was screaming his head off because he was dirty. Paul stopped, and while I changed Hal, Paul brought in the groceries. You were working late again. I invited Paul to sit and have a beer while I put the groceries away. Paul was charming, and I told him more than I should have. That was Paul's in and my downfall. He was a master seducer with his charm and good looks. I was the lonely, pissed-off new mom with low self-esteem. For the next few weeks, Paul seemed to be available any time I needed something done. Call me any time, he said. So I did. When the garage door got stuck and you were at work, Paul fixed it. When the furnace was putting out a bad odor, Paul found a dead mouse trapped inside, and every time he came over, he'd tell me how beautiful I was. He even gave me a bouquet of flowers. They sat right there on the dining room table for 4 days, and you never noticed them. Then one day, he kissed me, and before I knew it, I was naked on my back, and Paul was inside me. Do you want specifics? Like, was he better than you or bigger than you? Harold just shook his head. No. He was still trying to get his head around the fact Haley knew about the affair. An affair with a co-worker that lasted 8 months before he ended it. He remembered why it ended, when he felt Haley slipping away from him, and he realized how much he loved her. He remembered the fear when Janice Mueller threatened to call Haley and tell her all about their affair. He had dodged a bullet, a nearly year-long affair, and his wife was none the wiser. It was a secret Harold kept for these past 20+ years. Haley wasn't finished, and her words interrupted his thoughts. Good, but I will tell you he was neither, no better, no bigger, but he was there when I needed a friend. Only he wasn't a real friend, just one more asshole with an ego who was looking to score. A couple of days after that first time, he came back and we did it again. 2 things happened after that second time. Number 1, my conscience hit me so hard that I cried on and off for 2 days. Number 2, the very next day, you came home right after work and kissed me like you hadn't kissed me in almost a year. When I told you I hadn't made dinner, you took Hal and me to Sullivan's for a nice dinner. We made love that night and every night for the next week. I was in heaven. You were my husband again. I thought that was the week Jeb was conceived because it was my fertility week. I never dreamed that Paul was the father, not until the day of the field trip. Was he the only one? Haley was pissed, and her voice rose when she responded. Yes, was Janice Mueller the only one? Damn, she even knew and remembered her name. Yes, she was, and I'm sorry. It was stupid of me, and it's the one thing I'm most ashamed of in my entire life. Well, I guess that makes 2 of us. What do we do now? I know you always hated Paul's guts, and now you know he and I had an affair, even if it was a short one, and that he's Jeb's biological father. Can you even look at me after this? I still love you, Haley. I still want to be your husband, friend, and lover. I want us to grow old together. I'm not naive. There might be some fallout, maybe a few arguments after this, but I want you to move back home, today. Haley got up from her chair and sat in Harold's lap. She put her arms around his neck and gave him a kiss. Take me to bed, she asked, and he did. After they made love, they got up and ordered thigh for dinner. Harold and Haley sat on the back porch, eating spring rolls, green curry, and pad thai, drinking a nice Pinot Gris, and talking. Harold, please tell me you're not going to do anything stupid and go after Paul now. Haley, do me a favor. Stop referring to him as Paul. Call him Mazzetti or asshole, but not Paul. To answer your question, no, I'm not going to chase after him. I can't because Mazzetti is dead. Dead? How do you know that? Because Tony Rizzo told me Mazzetti died in a boating accident. Tony told you? You don't think? I don't know, and I don't care. But not everybody whose name ends in a vowel is mobbed up, so just forget about it. You have to work on your Sopranos accent. If you're going to do that, you suck at it. Still, that crazy humor made Harold laugh. I'll stop with the New Jersey accent if you promise to do one thing for me. Oh boy, this will be good. What is it? Shave down there. What? You've got to be kidding. You're 46, and you're still beautiful. I promise to make it worth your while, and if you don't like it, you can always grow it right back. It'll itch. Everyone says it. Harold was getting desperate. If itches, I'll scratch it. Okay, but you have to do one thing for me." Harold was now hopeful. "Anything, name it." "You have to stop shaving every day and keep a 5 o'clock shadow." "Really? That's it. It's a deal." Haley was surprised. They'd been married for 27 years, and she could count on her fingers the number of mornings Harold hadn't shaved. He must be desperate. She had a clue when he took her upstairs and started filling the tub with warm water. It took nearly 20 minutes that first time, but for Harold, it was worth it. It was worth it for Haley because Harold kept his promise and was worth her time. His head was still between her legs when she had to stop Harold by pulling his ears after his third orgasm. Yes, the girl could get used to it. A little over a week later, Jeb and Ted were knocking at the front door on a Saturday afternoon. Harold was pleased to see the two boys and even more pleased to see them both smiling. "I can't believe this bum is my brother," Ted said it while laughing. "Dad and I talked on Thursday, told me all about it. It got me thinking how much I owe you, Mr. Phillips. You've been there for me since my folks split up. I know I wouldn't have gone into engineering if you hadn't encouraged me. All I can say is, thanks." Harold gave Ted a hug. "You're welcome. And you know you are always welcome in our home. The world is a crazy place, almost as crazy as this household. You and your dad work everything out. We're going to be okay. He's a funny guy. He was more worried about my mom, and you said, I should never think less of my mother, that everyone screws up and she'll always love me and be my mom. Said you were someone I should look up to. The way you and Mrs. Phillips stuck it out and worked to keep your marriage going. How you've shown a rare manliness in it all. I can see what he's saying. Thanks again." Harold smiled. "I told Jeb the other day, and I'll tell you. When you get married, don't let a sweet piece of ass turn your head. Haley and I are the rare exception. Few couples survive infidelity. Now come on into the garden. Haley is back there and would love for you two to visit. I'll get us all a beer." Harold was pulling 4 beers out of the fridge when he saw it. A fresh banana cream pie on the second shelf. He never did get a piece of the pie on Easter Sunday. Harold smiled. "I think I better keep her." That's the end of this story. If you found it engaging, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.